Well, first of all, let me say how happy I am to be here today. And Diane, I just want to tell you, coming in, listening to you, I feel like I've been in church. As a person of faith, I tell you, listening to you and really realizing the unbelievable work that you're doing under your leadership with, FCNL is just something that keeps me going. You know, being on Capitol Hill and what we're dealing with, it's hard stuff. And to be here with you, people of faith, people who really care about loving thy neighbor, makes what I do, makes going back to the Hill a lot easier. So thank you so much. Also, let me just thank the Friends Committee for your advocacy network and for doing such critical work to raise the consciousness of Congress. And that's what you're doing. You're really educating members of Congress on so many issues, from auditing the Pentagon, which of course billions and billions and billions of dollars have been wasted, our tax dollars, which could go for housing and transportation and schools, to ending the wars in Afghanistan and Syria, and your help in moving us forward to repeal the 2001 and 2002 authorization for the use of military force. We would not be here where we are today if it weren't for you. So thank you so much. So it's a real honor also. Where are members of my district? Okay, I want to thank you for being here. You know, my congressional district is the wokest district in the country, and it's because of you. So thank you. It's really good to see you. 13. Yeah. And so it's really an honor to see everyone and to really discuss very briefly ending endless wars. And as all of you are aware, the 60-word, and this was a 60-word authorization in 2001, AUMF, that opened the door for any president to wage war anywhere in the world at any time, Democrat, Republican, Independent, any president, without a congressional debate or a vote. Those 60 words drastically altered history. The vote to relinquish our constitutional authority occurred just 3 days, if you remember this now, 3 days after the horrific attacks of 9/11. The American people, myself included, were angry and anxious to take action. But I couldn't vote for that authorization because when I read it, I knew then, as I know now, that it would be used as a blank check for perpetual war. And sadly, in the last 18 years, we have seen this blank check used by 3 presidents in places across the globe. And this authorization has become a catch-all for wars without end and wars without the input or oversight of Congress. And so, yes, I was the only one who voted against that, but there was no way that no way I could vote. And it was a tough vote, but I remember you came and supported me during that very terrible, terrible time. And unfortunately, we've seen in the last 18 years that this blank check used by these 3 presidents has become this catch-all with the lack of input or oversight from Congress. Now, in 2018, the Congressional Research Service issued a report showing that this authorization, and mind you, this is a declassified report, has been used at least 41 times in 18 countries to wage war with little or no congressional oversight. These include operations at Guantanamo, warrantless wiretapping here in our own country, and recent military action in Syria, Somalia, Yemen, Niger, you name it. And that's only, again, the unclassified instances. Can you imagine what the classified report would say? How many others have been authorized that the American people don't know about? How many wars, how many interventions? We know that the 2001 AUMF has been used dozens of times to justify military action and other activities, open-ended expansion of military operations, again, in Djibouti, Kenya, Somalia. So let's be clear, this 2001 AUMF in its current form says that any administration can justify nearly any military action without so much as a debate or a vote in Congress. Now, the House of Representatives, we're the people's house, and the people don't have a voice, and we have a constitutional responsibility to the people, and Congress has been missing in action. These wars have cost a lot of money, trillions of dollars, not to mention sending our brave men and women into harm's way. And I am the daughter of a veteran, 25 years, Lieutenant Colonel, my late father. And my dad was the first one. He fought in 2 wars, World War II and Korea. And he was the first one who called me when I voted against that authorization and thanked me for it, because he told me, he said, "You do not send our brave troops in harm's way on a humbug." 3 days later, not knowing what you're doing. And of all people, actually close to his death at the last few years, he had me call him Colonel Tut. He loved being, so I made name Tut. He loved being, a proud veteran. But he certainly understood what sending our troops into harm's way meant and authorizing endless wars. And we also know that this taxpayer dollar, our taxpayer dollars, could be better used at home to fix our crumbling schools, send young people to college debt-free, or to address climate change that's happening right now. The war in Afghanistan alone, this is the longest war in United States history. It's cost $2 trillion since 2001, 244,000 civilians. We have to be concerned about this because civilians have been killed in this direct violence since 2001, 244,000. I mean, we're talking about people, love thy neighbor, we're talking about people, fathers, children, mothers, relatives, people, human beings that because of our military action, innocent human beings have been killed. And now we have a president who said he wanted to end the war and pull our troops out in a haphazard, bizarre way. And of course we want to see our troops come home, but we do not want to see chaos as a result of any unplanned, instantaneous, knee-jerk reaction from this president. According to the Brown Institute, the Cost of War Project, since 2001, the total war on terror, it's cost $5.9 trillion. Can you believe that? $5.9 trillion. Now, that's not to mention, again, the human and economic cost to these countries. In Afghanistan and Syria and Iraq, entire communities have been destroyed. Oftentimes we forget that. We talk about only the United States interests. But we have to remember, civilians have been killed, as I mentioned. Hundreds of thousands of people are living as war refugees and internally displaced people. We forget about that oftentimes as the cost of war and of cost of our unauthorized interventions. So it's an immoral situation, I believe, that our country has created. That's why in the dark days following the attacks, I have continued to introduce bipartisan legislation to repeal the 2001 AUMF. And so now the bill, and I know you're going to move around the hill, but you all have been so helpful in getting us to really 80 co-sponsors. It's H.R. 1274 that would repeal the 2001 AUMF 8 months after it was signed into law. And it would allow 8 months for Congress to come up to a new one, if in fact Congress decided we should use force. It would restore Congress's constitutional responsibility to debate and to vote on wars. And I am very proud to say that we included this in the Defense Appropriations Bill, this repeal. And so thank you very much. We've tried and tried and tried for, for 18 years, but we finally got that done. Now, of course, it's in the Senate, and who knows what happens. But if they take it out, we're going to try again until it is done. Whether it's Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, we know that these conflicts have no military solution. We've seen that over and over and over again. And it will require ultimately political and diplomatic solutions. And it's got to be sustained, and it's got to be for real. So repealing the AUMF is so important now more than ever with this administration's escalations and threats of war with Iran and other parts of the world. And this summer, again, we saw another success, and that was the 2002 AUMF. This was the authorization to use force against Iraq. We included that repeal in the 20 National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA. Again, that bill is in the Senate now, going through negotiations and conference. And so I hope that as you, again, talk to members of the Senate, ask them, and I've talked to most of our Democrats who are with us on this, to keep that provision in the bill. That's extremely necessary because we're making progress, but it's too slow if you ask me. So the politics of this, thank you very much for holding members of the House and Senate accountable, because we never would have gotten these repeals into the bills in the House had it not been for you. So let me leave you with a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. His words regarding Vietnam from over 50 years ago, they actually still resonate today. He said, they are talking about peace as a distant goal, as an end we seek. But one day we must come to see that peace is not merely a distant goal that we seek, but that it's a means in which we arrive at that goal. We must pursue peaceful ends through peaceful means. And all of this is saying that in the final analysis, the means and the end must be consistent, because the end is pre-existent in the means. And ultimately, destructive means and violence means we could not bring about constructive ends. And those words still resonate today. And so peace is patriotic. Oftentimes, I'm told you can't use the P word. I said, well, I talk about poverty and I talk about peace. Okay? And so remind members as you travel around and talk to members of Congress that this is about peace, and get them to talk about peace more, because that is a very patriotic value that we all should uphold. And so it's finally, let me just finally say it's good to be the resistance. My district, again, is the leader of the resistance movement, thank God. And it's also really important, extremely important, to have global peace and security as part of your overall agenda. And it truly is about loving thy neighbor. I mean, it boils down to that, loving thy neighbor. So thank you all again so much for being here. It's really good to see everyone. And have a good day.